And the BAFTA goes to Robert Aramayo from I Swear.
BAFTA 2026 controversy. Winner of 3 BAFTAs is I Swear, a film about the real life of Tourette syndrome sufferer John Davidson.
We could maybe just go for a walk or something.
Wank. Yeah, that'd be good.
Tourette syndrome causes involuntary tics and even verbal outbursts, particularly in its more potent form of coprolalia.
Coprolalia causes involuntary swearing and inappropriate tics. This can include the N-word, slurs, etc.
Which can basically mean saying out loud the worst things imaginable.
I'm Dottie.
You're gonna die of cancer. Ha
John Davidson, on whom the film was based, was in the audience that night, and when an award was being presented by Michael B. Jordan and Delroy Lindo, he shouted out the dreaded N-word.
Delroy and I are delighted to be presenting the first BAFTA of the night for a vital part of movie making.
The show, going out as live on a 2-hour delay from the BBC, aired without censoring the offending section, and before long, all hell breaks out on social media.
Black people are being asked to show grace, and grace is not being shown to them, about how incredibly, powerfully, just upsetting this word is.
Tourette syndrome is not a modern illness. Possible references go back to the 15th century, but the first clearly recorded case dates to 1825, when Gaspard Itard, a French doctor, reported the case of the Marquise de Dampierre, who swore obscenely and uncontrollably. I'd guess it's only because the lady was an aristocrat that the case received any attention whatsoever. I can only imagine how much worse it must have been for sufferers of the ailment further back in history. It wasn't until 1885 that the French physician Gilles de la Tourette codified the illness for the first time, hence the syndrome's name. And yet, the illness has remained relatively misunderstood to this day. Even people sympathising with Davidson's outburst described the condition as a mental illness. Tourette syndrome is a physiological brain condition, not a mental illness. The BAFTA controversy has thrown up a number of sad ironies. Davidson has committed much of his life attempting to communicate what Tourette's is to the world, yet the outburst and consequent furore seem to demonstrate how little the world still understands, and how much it still gets wrong. Firstly, that Davidson should have been able to control his outbursts.
People are not choosing to say these things, and they usually do not reflect the person's beliefs, feelings, or intentions. See, that's what I don't believe. Okay?
Secondly, that even if involuntary, the fact he shouted out racist slurs meant he had a racist mindset, that the condition revealed someone's innermost thoughts rather than their taboos and inhibitions.
I've been seeing a lot of people be like, well, he said it like when the crowd went silent. That is most likely when a tic is going to happen when you're in public, when you're in complete silence, or when you're trying not to say or do something.
Thirdly, came mob demands that Davidson should apologise for causing offence.
John Davidson, the man with the Tourette shit, had the perfect opportunity to apologise and take accountability, but instead he decided to make a statement and play the victim.
Which, again, completely misunderstands the condition and who is the actual victim.
We have one rule in this house. And that's if you do anything you can't help, you never, ever have to apologise for it.
And perhaps most depressingly came the idea that Davidson should have been separated from the rest of the audience if he was at risk of being offensive.
So why would you give him the opportunity to sit in this audience and offend and insult people?
Over by the fireplace, just you it there from now on. You never use language like that in this house again, you hear me? And you never spit at me again. Get down on the floor. Get down on the floor, John!
Once again, tragic irony. The film, I Swear, is a passionate voice for raising awareness of this condition, not locking its victims away.
John Davidson is the most remarkable man I've ever met. He's so forthcoming with education, that he believes there's still so much more that we need to learn about Tourette's.
Davidson was no longer in the room to hear this tribute from actor Robert Aramayo. After the first half controversy, he isolated himself for the second half of the show, watching the rest of the event from a private room.
For people living with Tourette's, it's us around them that help define what their experience is. So, to quote the film, they need support and understanding.
Sad, Sad irony. What should have been a learning moment grew into a media maelstrom of ignorance and intolerance.
Sorry, it's a tick. I'm sorry, miss, I've got Tourette's. Anyway, I just wanted to apologise for that.
Davidson, who has declared he never wants to apologise for his condition, something he has spent a lifetime doing, was forced into a number of apologies, most recently declaring, "Whilst I will never apologise for having Tourette syndrome, I will apologise for any pain, upset and misunderstanding that it may create. This past week has been tough and has reminded me that what I do, raising awareness for such a misunderstood condition, there is still a long way to go." The BBC and BAFTA got a lot of flack, some of it well deserved, particularly for not censoring the word on its public broadcast, whilst it managed to censor a number of more political messages from others receiving awards. But attacking the messengers risks losing the message, that of an understanding of the condition itself. Depressingly, so many retreated into lazy and misinformed outrage. Worse still, Davidson's condition was even turned into the butt of a joke from people vastly more privileged than himself.
If there are any white men out here in the audience, Lord, with Tourette's, I advise you to tell them they better read the room tonight, Lord.
Even Saturday Night Live joined the fun.
I'm Mel Gibson, and as I probably should have pointed out decades ago, I too suffer from Tourette's, which explains a lot of the things I've said or yelled through the years.
And even more worse still was the idea that Davidson would have faced a beating for saying what he did.
I'm tired of black people always having to take it. I don't know if I would have took it the same way, and maybe that's why I'm not in their same position. I think I'd have put my hands on that white boy.
Again, so horribly ironic if you've watched the film. Davidson, in real life, was beaten up many times, once with an iron bar to within an inch of his life. Tourette's sufferers are more than 3 times as likely to end up in physical alterations.
We say people are not choosing to say these things. How the hell we know? Okay, that's hard for me to believe, all right? Somebody somewhere taught him the language. He was around people that he learned this behavior and this language from. So don't tell me they don't reflect the person's beliefs.
Tourette's is not a mental illness. It's not a revealer of your inner beliefs, and it's certainly not a choice. The whole sorry incident has exposed some rather awful things about our society. How ignorant we remain about a disability like Tourette syndrome and coprolalia. How social media can just amplify the most strident takes, the worst in us. And perhaps, most sadly, how limited many of our desires for tolerance, understanding and inclusion turn out to be when dealing with actual complexity or nuance. But there's a cure. The film, I swear. It's funny, touching and educational, and I'll bet a full swear jar that none of those most critical of Mr. Davidson had actually seen it. The French brought this illness to the attention of the world, so let's let the French bring this video to a close. Plaire et instruire, as the French playwright Molière described the purpose of his art. To please and instruct, and I swear does both brilliantly. Go and see it and learn something.
See, John Davidson is the inspiration for the BAFTA-nominated movie I Swear. Never heard of it.